It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. You're tuning into your Feel Good Breakfast Show. This is Expresso only on SABC3. Welcome to it. Now, one of the most talked about topics today, even over the past week, of course, was the devastating Cape Town fires that wreaked havoc across the southern peninsula over the past week. It started on Sunday, destroyed somewhat 4,000 hectares of natural vegetation, and not only making national headlines, but also international headlines. I mean, I had my mom-in-law phoning. It's like, listen, are you guys okay?
From Hungary.
It spread across the world, all the way from Hungary, exactly.
Yeah. Well, with us in studio this morning is Mayoral Committee Member for Safety and Security, Alderman JP Smith, to give us a bit of an update on what's going on right now in the mother city. And as Ewan just said, it's been a grueling couple of days. People have been working around the clock. But what's the state of affairs right now with regards to the damage and the fires themselves?
You know, one is always tentatively optimistic. Murphy hears all. You don't want to be too cocky, but at this stage, I think the fire is effectively vanquished. We're in that 2-3 day period where you watch for flare-ups, but last night there were none. Yesterday we had several flare-ups that we had to attend to, and just for good measure, because apparently we weren't challenged enough, fresh new fires starting in Simonstown and a massive blaze in Cape Point, which is the second time that Cape Point blaze has flared up, having started on Wednesday the first time.
JP, I mean, I think it was an intense process, especially for the firefighters, not only battling the heat, but also natural heat, you know, some of the hottest days we've seen across Cape Town. A lot of vegetation destroyed, homes as well. What's the exact extent of the damage?
That is a thing that we're going to have to spend the next few days calculating. The private damages is difficult to say. They are fairly high-end properties, so it's difficult to determine exactly what their value is going to be. You've got an hotel complex that got into the mix, Tanswalo Lodge. That's in fact where that senior firefighter divisional commander Frank Forbay was injured. I saw him in hospital yesterday. He's in good spirits. And you have 4,000 to 5,000 hectares of vegetation in the national park, which, whilst it will probably financially not have great value, has inestimable environmental value, all the animals and plant life there that was destroyed. Luckily, no human life, because that's the ultimate measure of what you've lost. No human lives, 3 injuries only, and that all 3 firefighters, a twisted ankle, a broken arm, and then, as I said, the slightly burnt firefighter, and he's recovering in hospital.
Yeah, and which areas are we talking about in terms of damage, just so we can get a bit of a kind of a map view in our minds?
Well, that's actually something very difficult to map. Most people see the city as they drive around it.
Yes.
So it's very difficult to understand, and you actually only see it from you have to see it from a chopper to fully appreciate. But the fire started at Boys Drive, whipped all the way around through Lakeside, over past Tokai, into Constantia Neck, almost managed to jump the neck. That would have been a very big disaster, because you open up a whole new flank. Whipped across onto Chapman's Peak, made it into the back of Hout Bay, and of course burned down into Clovelly, and the golf course there acted as the boundary. And at some point you had flames, you know, 4 or 5 times higher than the fire engines, which those officers had to battle. And
pictures,
that is some seriously scary stuff. But the worst part of this, of course, has been the weather. You know, the weather bringeth and the weather taketh away. And you could not, if you had written a fictional story about a severe fire, you couldn't have concocted a more ridiculous mix, because you had a humping wind that started this whole thing, that drove the fire, then switched back on itself. Then you had a record temperature, 42 degrees, highest temperature since the early 1900s, and the hottest city in the world in that day. And then for good measure, the next day you had rain everywhere except on the mountain when it was needed, but enough to ground the helicopters. So a really ridiculous mix.
Well, it was, like you said, it was an intense process. I mean, the firefighters, thousands pulled through to pull their weight, individuals as well. What is your response to everyone that pulled together and just helped and do whatever they can to keep the fire at bay?
Well, you had a current demonstration of the true spirit of Ubuntu. That was really people coming out, about 3,000 volunteers who came out, gave of their time. There is one gentleman who I have seen now every day since the beginning. He lives in Muizenberg. Walked over on the first day to come and help, and stayed for, for 4 days. He was there yesterday afternoon still. Incredible. We had to ask the public to stop bringing stuff because we ran out of space to store it. So incredible. People stopped by the road and handed water and food to firefighters. incredible charity and goodwill from businesses and all alike.
Yeah. And indeed, to all those firefighters who risked it all and all those individuals that really put their hand up to help, thank you. Your country really does salute you. You guys are all the heroes out there. And that's the kind of stuff that the Rainbow Nation's made of.
Absolutely. That is why we love South Africa so much. Right now, here's Graham with your news.